So I want to start off by saying that the reason some of you may notice the flyer wrote some ideas to help you get a second date, but we put in parentheses and may help you get a first date as well. So I want to explain very briefly why we put that there. As you may have noticed, many times if you get a mutually approved match on the site, sometimes, unfortunately, it doesn't get to a first date because people have like a phone call and someone ends it after the phone call, or people even text and then decide through texting that they no longer want to continue. So that's why we put that in there, because these tips can help you get that first date even after the match is mutually approved. Okay, so I told Lori I'm going to keep it to 20 minutes, so I'm watching the clock, Lori. So here goes. Okay, so let me just preface, I have 6 tips, but I want to preface the 6 tips with the following point that you are probably all aware of. Unfortunately, the reason I say unfortunately is that I don't actually endorse this. I'm merely making an observation of what's been happening from my perspective as a matchmaker. And that is the following, that neutral has become the new no. What that means is that instead of people continuing unless they see a red light, people are stopping if they don't see a green light, and often rather quickly. So I don't know if you guys have received this as well, is that, either you're seeing that someone else is doing this, or maybe you also have this philosophy. And I think the reason that this neutral has become the new no, one of the many reasons is that sometimes when people have been dating for a while, they're tired. And so understandably, it's hard to motivate them to continue just the time, the effort, if they're not feeling something quickly. So even though I don't promote this, and I actually encourage people to keep going, even if they don't see the green light right away, because I'm aware that this is the reality, is that neutral has become the new no. We want to prevent people from coming across as neutral. So these 6 tips are things you can do so that the other person who is dating you or talking to you, maybe it hasn't even gotten to a first date yet, they're just talking to you, will not view you as neutral and will hopefully feel excited about you and more likely to want to continue. So here's the first tip. The first tip is what I call going the extra mile. And what this is that you want to stand out and do something to make yourself a little bit more memorable than other people are. So I want to quickly tell you a brief true story that happened. Years ago, one of my coaching clients told me that on a first date, he had drove from, I think it was like Baltimore or Silver Spring to New York. So he had about a 4-hour drive each way. So that's tough. You know what I mean? It's an 8-hour round trip plus the 2 or 3 hour date. So that can be rough. So the woman on the date, she actually prepared a care package for him and sent him on his trip back, his 4-hour trip back with a care package. And he was flabbergasted because in all of his years of dating, no one had ever done something like that for him. So she really stuck out in his mind as someone is really extra special. So to summarize, you want to make a big splash. Think about how we learned in the Chumash when Eliezer met Rivka, how she really went that extra mile. You know, not only did she offer water to him for his camels, she really went the extra mile. So tip number 1 is you want to go the extra mile so that someone will kind of see that green light quickly with you and be excited, because unfortunately they may not have the patience to spend a few dates getting to see how amazing you are. I wish people would wait, but they don't, unfortunately. So you got to show how great you are quickly. Okay, tip number 2, which is kind of connected to tip number 1, is you want to give back more than you're asked for. And I'm going to explain what that means. Basically, what that means, one example of that is if somebody asks you a close-ended question, you want to respond as if it was an open-ended question. So for example, if somebody says to you or texts you or says to you, "How was your day?" Instead of saying "good, thank you," you want to actually answer that as if they were asking you an open-ended question. So instead of just saying good things, what you want to say is, my day was really great. Let me tell you something special that happened to me today, or let me tell you some meaningful lesson I learned today. And then you can ask them about their day as well. So you just want to elaborate any kind of question they ask you, even if it's a closed-ended question. Treat it as if it's an open-ended question. And you probably know the difference, but just in case not, a closed-ended question is basically a question that only gets usually a short response, like, what did you major in school? What do your parents do for a living? That's a closed-ended question. An open-ended question is something like, oh, I see you majored in psychology. Why did you choose to major in psychology? I'd love to hear what made you choose that. Or why did you choose that field of work, instead of asking, what do you do? So if somebody asks you a closed-ended question, you want to answer it as if it's an open-ended question. Now, one word of caution about this tip, and I tend to do this because I'm a talker. Make sure you don't do this. Make sure you don't end up speaking so much that you're giving a monologue or a lecture, because you're trying so hard to give back more. So you don't want to be talking maybe for more than 2 or 3 minutes before you involve the other person back in the conversation and ask them, so what do you think of what I had to say? Or what do you think about that? I wouldn't go on for more than 2 or 3 minutes. Maybe even that's too long. Just to put that important caveat in there to remember. The third point, the third tip I want to share is what we call stepping up. And what that means is it's being a little bit more proactive than you're probably used to being. So I'm going to address how that affects women first. Most of the time, women do what we call mirroring or follow the lead, which means that they are pretty passive and they wait for the man to initiate. At least in the early stages of a shidduch, the women tend to wait for the man to initiate any kind of questions, and they'll simply mirror him back, follow his lead. So what that means, practically speaking, is that usually it's always just the man who's wishing the woman a good Shabbos in the beginning stages of a shidduch. So women, I want to encourage you to step up and be more reciprocal. So many men tell me they want reciprocity. And I'd like to hear your feedback later on this, men in the audience. So many men tell me they don't want to be the one initiating every question, every phone call, every text message. They want the woman as well to reciprocate the way it would be with 2 friends. So women, my message to you is that most men are telling me throughout the years, and Lori's told me that they've told her that too, men want more reciprocity. Reach out to him, wish him a good Shabbos. And if you've had a good Zoom date, a good phone date, a good in-person date, ladies, send a text message. I know this might sound very forward, but men like this. Send a text message after the phone date, Zoom date, or in-person date and write, I really enjoyed the date. I hope to hear from you. Most men love that if they're interested as well. They like that. They like to hear that reassurance. It draws them in. So if you're interested, show interest. At the end of the date, smile, say, I had a nice time. I hope to hear from you. If you feel that's too forward, maybe do something a little bit more in a modified way. But the point is, let the men know you're interested if you are. Now, what this means for men is that you also want to be a little bit more proactive. Many men, because they want more reciprocity, they actually will wait a lot for the woman to initiate. So even though I'm encouraging women to initiate more, because most women will not do what I'm suggesting they do, assume that the ball's in your court. So assume that the default position for you men out there is that you do need to initiate, at least for the first several dates, until things get to a more middle point and they're more comfortable. So like I said, even though I'm encouraging women to be more reciprocal, most women will not hear this or they won't follow this advice. So men, be as proactive as possible, because most women tell me they want to be pursued. They want to be courted. They want to be taken care of. So be proactive. Okay, so tip number 4. So here's what I'll say. The main reason people are telling me that they're not interested in continuing is chemistry and connection. So what does this mean, chemistry and connection? What it really means on a very simple level, a person is thinking to themselves, did I enjoy the time with that person? Did I enjoy that phone call? Did I enjoy that date? Do I look forward to seeing that in person again? How do I feel? So what you want to do is you want to do whatever you can to make this person feel connected to you and feel chemistry with you, assuming that you're interested in them. So, everybody these days, including myself, we all have such short attention spans. We get bored so easily. So just like good public speakers and good school teachers, they have charisma. They have positive energy. They know how to draw a person in. You want to learn how to do that too. You want to be vibrant. You want to be upbeat. You want to have positive energy. Think about the personality qualities that draw you in to another person, and you want to mimic those very same qualities. There's a plenty of YouTube videos you can watch for free on how to be an engaging speaker. One more last thing I'll add. My husband is an actuary, very quintessential introverted actuary. And he's a quiet kind of guy, but because he had to speak at lectures, he had to learn how to be engaging and charismatic. So he worked at it and he learned how to become a really fun, engaging conversationalist, even though it didn't come naturally for him. So my last point is, don't think to yourself, oh, I'm quiet, I'm introverted, I just can't do it. You can do it. Everybody has the quality to be fun and upbeat and engaging. It could be you won't be able to make a 180, but you can make at least a 45-degree change. And one more last thing about point number 4, tip number 4, even the people that you think are naturally very engaging and fun and extroverted and outgoing, even they have to work at it, because sometimes they're tired. Sometimes they're not in the mood themselves. Not everyone's up 24/7. So even these people who you think it comes naturally for, they still have to work. I know someone who's a very big public speaker, and I once said to her, it must be so easy for you because you're naturally so bubbly and outgoing. She said to me, are you kidding? That's why I'm tired all the time. It takes work even for people who are naturally bubbly, excuse me. Okay, tip number 5, and that is that even though I'm promoting being charismatic, connecting to another person by being vibrant and upbeat and watching YouTube videos on how to draw a person in, at the same time, I want to tell you that when you're making a decision about somebody, you still want to listen to your seichel as well. In other words, even though I'm encouraging people to act in such a way that will cause chemistry, at the same time, I'm still trying to encourage you to give things a fair chance, even if that person doesn't draw you in immediately. I don't think that feelings should be the only reason you're making a decision about a match. You also want to use your head. It should be a team, both your head and your heart. So you want to think with your head and also feel with your heart. And together with both your head and heart, decide if this is a good match. Feelings, they come and go like the wind. You don't want that to be your only criteria. And lastly, about this point, a good example is this, is that you want to think to yourself, is this person, you don't want to only think to yourself, is this person fun to date? You want to think, is this going to be a truly good marriage partner for you? Sometimes people, the main criteria they're thinking about is this person fun to date? But that's not the only thing you want to think about. You want to use your head as well. Think about like this. Sometimes a person, because they have a lot of charisma or they're a great public speaker, they do really well in a job interview. But when you hire them, they're not the best employee. And conversely, sometimes there can be a person that's a little bit quiet. They don't speak so well off the cuff. They don't make that best first impression, but they're the best employee. They're a loyal worker. They work hard. So to remember this example when you're trying to decide if you want to move forward. Will this person be a good spouse to you? Not just are they fun to date? My last tip is that hang in there. And it's kind of connected to tip number 5. We know that feelings can grow. even if they're not there after 3 dates, we know that feelings can grow. What do you think the biggest proof that we have that feelings can grow? If anybody wants to quickly put a comment in there, does anyone know what the biggest proof we have that feelings can grow even well after just 3 dates? Does anybody want to put a comment in there? Is anyone typing, Lori? Or should I just share? I just want to see if anyone had an idea.
Let's see. Yitzchak.
Avinu. Oh, okay. Okay, so you want to use him as an example, okay? That feelings can grow, okay? That's a great example. Thank you for sharing, Avraham. So that's a great example as well. I was actually thinking a more modern day example, and that's the work world. Think of how many times people meet people they work with. Sometimes they don't even like them, even platonically at first. Sometimes they get on their nerves. Sometimes they wouldn't even think twice, about them. They would never agree to a second date with them. But after 3 months of working with them, their feelings really shift and they really like that person. In fact, it's so common to develop feelings for people that you work with in the work world that we, for SYAS, we try to be very careful who we foster relationships with. And we actually, for SYAS, are very, careful not to become too friendly, because as you get to know someone, sometimes it doesn't happen after just a few dates. After weeks or months, feelings can really develop. So keep that in mind and hang in there, that even if you don't feel feelings right away, they can develop. One more thing I want to say about this.
Kim, can I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
Lori Palatnik shares her story. She's a famous women's speaker. She said she went out, in her days, it was expected that you go out 3 times with somebody before you give a yes or no. And in fact, Aliza Ben Shalom and I pushed this concept called momentum dating. For most people, we set up that you should really try to have 3 dates before you say a yes or no, because you don't really know on the first date, and someone could be nervous, especially if they're attracted to you, then they get really nervous. So Lori Palatnik says she really didn't like her husband so much on the first date or the second date, but the 3rd date, she said he started to grow on her and she could see his greatness. So I think that hang in there that you're saying, Kim, is so important. So people should think about momentum dating, and they should think about Lori Palatnik's own story.
Yes, and I've heard people who don't even feel anything until a 6th or 7th date. But here's what I will say. The last point about the last tip is that if you're going to give something another chance, but you're on the fence, you're not so excited, don't be lackadaisical and nonchalant, because what happens a lot, I see this all the time, Lori, I see you nodding too. I see this all the time, that a person's like, you know what, I'm not really feeling it, but fine, I'll give it a second try. I'll give it one more chance. And you know what? The other party can tell they're not that excited because they take a while to call, or if they're the person who's supposed to respond, they take a while to respond. The other person can sense your energy. So if you're going to give it another try, act as if you're interested, put your best foot forward, because our energy is contagious. And if you go in there and you're like, oh, this is a last ditch effort, I don't see it, but I'm doing it either to appease the matchmaker, or I'm doing it because I want to be 100% sure, then do it with a full heart. Do it with an open heart.
That is great.
And try to still make a really good, try to still make a good impression. You don't want them to know that they're your courtesy one more try date, basically. And they will sense it, even if you don't tell them, if you are a little bit nonchalant and you take a while to respond and you don't infuse positive energy in that last ditch effort of that one more date.
Yeah, I just had a couple who were going to spend Shabbos together for the first time. It was a long distance dating couple. And the girl said to me, well, we'll see what happens. And I said, no, that's not what you're not going to just see what happens. You're going to make something happen. You don't just sit back. You have to be an active participant and choose the direction that you want your life to go. So thank you, Kim, for
And the
bringing.
other thing, as I'll say, is that if you go in there, one last point, because I'm trying to really stick these 20 minutes, one last point. If you're not really feeling it, you're feeling neutral and you're on the fence. If you act excited and have positive energy, the other person may reciprocate that positive energy, and then you may like them more. It's like a cycle. If you're upbeat and warm and engaging, then they will reflect off that energy and bounce it back. And then you may like them more because now they're acting, warmer and more upbeat and more vibrant in response to you. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So I think we are good to go with the tips. Oh, someone asked a question. What about the fear of leading people on? That is actually a very good question. I just want to quickly address that because there is a fair point about leading them on. So here's what I would say is that you don't want to lie to somebody. So what leading somebody on, in my opinion, would be at the end of the date, say, oh, I look forward to seeing you again. You don't want to say that if you're not planning on seeing them again, because that is going to mislead them. But the same way when you're with, someone in a shul kiddush, and it's purely platonic, and they're trying to have a conversation with you, you want to try to make them feel as if you're listening to them, that you're interested in speaking to them. Sometimes when I'm at a shul kaddish, I'm tired and I'm not really in the mood to socialize, but you know what? I act as if I'm interested in speaking to them. I put a big smile on my face. I listen well. I ask them good, active listening questions. So, and it's clear I'm already married, so I'm not looking for a shidduch, but I'm just being on, I'm being attentive. I'm trying to make them feel as if I'm interested in listening to them, but you don't want to, at the end of the date, you don't want to imply that you want to see them again. It's just basically doing the best you can to make them feel as if you're enjoying the conversation with them, because you can still enjoy a conversation with someone, even if you don't want to continue.
Kim, I want to add something. People, I think, have a fear. I don't want to hurt this person.
Right.
And, you have to take a chance. You have to keep exploring a shidduch till you're sure. But if you break it off prematurely, you punish both of you. So you kind of have to take a chance and be brave in dating and go out of your comfort zone to make things happen. You can't break something up early because you're afraid you'll hurt somebody.
Now, I will say there is a place, just my very last point, there is a place that if you've been on several dates with someone, not 1 or 2 dates, but several dates, and it's clear that that party is much more excited than you are, there is a place to nicely either have the shadchan say this, or you can kind of do a temperature check and just say, you know what, I see you have many good qualities. I'm really hoping my feelings will grow and develop. Just something like that. There is a place to nicely say, maybe I'm not where you are right now, but I see you're a wonderful person and I'm hoping my feelings will grow within time. That way the carpet isn't being pulled out from them. After several dates, if you're still on the fence, there is a place to say that.
That's great. That's great. Okay, Kim, we're actually ahead of schedule.
Oh, good. I did well time-wise.
You did really good. So let me stop the recording.